This upload of a Twitter space is going to serve as a bit of a channel update. Yesterday, one of our friends from Twitter, Thoughts and Players, hosted a space, and we ended up discussing a lot of the subjects that I've been covering on my channel over the past few weeks. Tommy Robinson's documentary, which I did a review of recently, Nick Fuentes being doxxed and assaulting a woman, which I covered in a video, and some Andrew Tate updates, including his court cases, and checking in on Justin, the winner of his Lamborghini scam. This chat was unplanned and very casual, so it jumps around between subjects a bit, but it gives a bit of an insight into what's been going on and why I felt compelled to cover some of the subjects I've covered recently.
I don't know, it's gotten really, really bad here. It didn't help that the Nick Fuentes got brought back. Tommy Robinson has created a big problem as well because he fundraises for things that he doesn't spend the money on that he's fundraising for, like support my legal defense thing, and then he pleaded guilty.
Well, not only that, his fundraising. The biggest problem with his fundraising, it's all based on I'm being prosecuted for telling the truth. I did a whole video debunking it. The documentary that he's in jail for is just start to finish lies. It's garbage. Not just the defamation that he lost the defamation case for, but the whole. It's just, it's insane. And that to me makes it just a blatant scam, all his fundraising, because he knowingly lied, he knowingly defamed that kid, and just told also just other unnecessary little lies throughout the documentary to tell his narrative, which I've debunked as well. And his fundraising is off the back of, oh, they're doing this to me all because I told the truth. I'm like, okay, that's fraud then, because you're in jail, provably, easily proved for lying. So that's blatant. Like, yeah, that's in my mind. I believe that's a blatant scam. I believe like he should get a massive class action lawsuit against him for everyone that's given him money on the basis that he's a truth teller. I'm sorry, a bit of a tangent, but that grinds my gears.
I wanted to do kind of like, we never get to do any kind of like casual chat where it's not like an organized thread of information. And I do want to talk about some of like the recent updates and stuff. So you know what? Do you want to tell us, if you have it offhand, like how the fundraiser in the UK is going? Let's start there. Because I know that we hit first goal, but where are we since then?
Yeah, sure. So for those listening, whether it's now or on the recording, this fundraiser is for 4 women in the UK who are alleging that Andrew assaulted them, so raped them, and assaulted them in other ways between 2013 and 2016. And long story short, the police just really did a botched investigation job that took years and years and years, with little being done. They handed the file to the Crown Prosecution Service in 2019, by which time the Tate had fled, they'd moved to Romania, and the CPS declined to prosecute. So once a few of these women told their stories in a documentary on Vice News, and they got a hold of a law firm called McHugh, Jury and Partners, and they are deciding, since they've really been let down by the authorities, they're looking to sue Andrew civilly, just for some sort of chance at justice and getting him to answer for his crimes, I guess. But so there's a crowd fund, because it's very costly to bring this all the way to the higher court. So they've been crowdfunding. I've been promoting it on my page a lot. For those of you that follow me, you'll see. And they reached the first initial target, which was of £50,000. And the next target is £75,000. So we're probably going to set incremental targets like that, because it's going to cost quite a lot. Now, as far as where the case is, so Andrew was served a good 6 months ago.
So first, jury went to Romania to give him notice of the suit. And
Yes.
then he was officially served after it was approved by the High Court, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it was about 6 months ago. So Andrew was officially served. And this is significant. The judge approved a notion of anonymity, and the anonymity order, which means that, and this was significant because in the lawsuit over in the US, where and Tristan are suing two of the victims in the
Yeah.
case in what is just a
Just to
disgusting.
be clear, so they're defendants in the UK civil
Yes,
and they're
yes,
plaintiffs in the US civil.
yes. Well, just Andrew in the UK civil, but yeah. So they're suing what their victims in the US, and the US based lawyer, delib- surely deliberately, repeatedly doxed these two victims. So they just started receiving all sorts of threats and people coming to their houses and to their workplaces, and they had eventually had to go into hiding. And there's a few characters here on X that had played the part in that, which is a whole other thing, whole other conversation. But because of what we saw happen in the US, the UK lawyers applied for this anonymity order, which was granted by the judge, which means that if Tate or any of their people dox these women, release their identities in any way, they will then face criminal charges because they're lawyers, Tates, anyone like that. So that was really important. So as far as where it's progressed in the months from there, so obviously Tate was served. And I do know that Tate has given his response to the court, to the claims as well.
Oh, so he did file a defense.
He has the details of that. I'm not sure of, and I'm not sure if or when I'll have. I'd love to know because I'm pretty confident that his statement to the court is going to contradict some of his public statements about these women, which are they don't exist, all sorts of other ridiculous claims. I very much doubt that's what his statement consists of. So I really would love to see what is said to the court to prove for the millionth time how much of a liar he is. But that's the situation. It's all progressing as planned. I've been in communication with the lawyers that are representing the women, and they've made it very clear and I can tell all of you that this case is progressing as planned. The next big hearing will be in the new year, and we potentially could be looking at a trial date of towards the end of 2025. So it's all progressing as planned. The women will need help fundraising, and we can help them with that. And I'll guarantee.
I'm gonna need a medically induced coma until the trial starts. Okay, I just don't
Understandable.
want. Right? Listen. Me, you, and a lot of other people have watched so much Tate content. I'm surprised we're not brainwashed.
That's the thing. And of course, with my YouTube channel, for example, I'm not going to talk about Tate forever, right? So I've been branching off into other subjects here and there, but at times I've been starting to get burnt out just by, God, these guys are so repetitive. I can't make the same video debunking the same lies over and over. That's why I made a post the other day of Tate's up there again on a stream saying, "Oh, I'm gonna release the real world token. Everyone's gonna own a percentage of the real world. I'm gonna do a daddy world tour." I'm like, for God's sake, I debunked this in June. Can you give me something new? Give me another scam, please. If you're
I
gonna do it,
know
do it.
it's like Tate is doing like reposts in real life. You know what I mean? Like he always reposts himself constantly.
I guess the kids just keep falling for it. Having said that, though, oh God, you can tell in the desperation. Their followers, the real world numbers, surely just absolutely dwindled. They're getting so desperate, and what I see has happened gradually over the months is that, in my opinion, I've said for a long time that I believe the real world was a pyramid scheme that was reliant on current members recruiting new members. I'm not even sure if that's the case anymore because that's just not as big of a function of the program. But what it is doing is just using all these other scams, his crypto, the Lamborghini scam, the real world token that he's been promising SEC approval for 6 months, 5 months now. Um, so it's
Oh,
like he's pivoted.
just let me slip in something, Gadget, to just finish talking about the
Yep.
UK civil. Just for anybody listening on the replay, the fundraising, it doesn't just cover supporting the women's legal costs, which the law firm is donating dollar for dollar their free time. Okay. But it's also supporting legal advocacy to ensure that these kind of things don't happen again, including the rampant grooming and misogyny. Okay, so like people like, why is the lawsuit so expensive? These lawyers are making tons of money. They are not. And even if the victims or the complainants are successful in their case and they win, collection is hard. Getting your judgment after the fact is difficult. Really, these women just want some justice, and there's never enough money that can make up for what somebody has done to you. Some victims go the civil route because even getting a judgment for $1 makes them feel believed and supported. And unfortunately, the criminal system burden of proof is very, very high because you're depriving someone of their liberty and their assets. But in civil cases, it's 51%. The judge just has to believe one person more. And that's what this case is about. The CPS in the UK dropped the ball. And so these women have no choice but to pursue this particular avenue. So if you can donate $1 or $5, these victims go through a lot. They do. They deserve some
Yeah.
justice. So I just wanted to just round that out about the UK fundraiser, because there's a lot of places people could put their money, including their groceries, right? And so we know it's hard to share and it's hard to ask other poor people to help poor people. But if you can spare it, or if you can spare a share, please get the word out about the fundraiser and let's get the girls to goal so they can move forward, because a lot more will come forward and hopefully be believed. All right, Gadget. Where were we then about where we were going with the rest? We talked about your
Oh,
YouTube, and you were doing like some different stuff because you can't talk about Tate forever.
yeah, yeah. I've been at times going through a bit of Tate burnout, but that then again they could just come out with some ridiculous thing that will make it fun again. But and also there's been some things that I've been meaning to cover for a while, like that Tommy Robinson documentary is something that thought or was thinking about looking at when I had some time in between Tate news, and then when I looked at it, as soon as I started watching it, I'm like, okay, I have to do this. I have to cover this. It is insane. So, like, I don't know how to describe it. Like when I was first watching it, and then when I started looking into it and fact checking it point by point, I'm like, oh my god, this is just one of the big scams on the internet right now. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
but as far as
everything in the manosphere or whatever is just scam after scam after scam, and uh, I don't know who should be blamed more: the people that do it or the people keep falling for it.
yeah, it's a I've thought about that quite a bit, and especially and look, I understand. And I see these comments in my videos and posts, and I completely understand when people have the thoughts of like, they deserve it if you're stupid enough to fall for it. Um, Especially with like the kind of content I'm making, I really want to refrain from myself having that kind of mindset and seeing it that
Yeah,
way.
because that's a bit victim blamey. Yeah.
It is, and there's been scams and pyramid schemes for decades and decades and decades. And the way I see it is the internet has really just given these types of things such bigger reach, and pushing back against it is so much more important. That's why I admire so much someone like CoffeeZilla, who gets such big reach and does such a great job of uncovering scams and increasing awareness of what kind of scams are happening online. I think that's really important too. But also, like, when it comes to Tate, having spoken to so many of the young lads who, one, are like either in what I believe is the cult, or have escaped the cult, it makes me a lot more sympathetic for a lot of them. Some of them, no, of course. Some of them are just monsters. But I always want to approach everyone like with the mindset that they aren't bad and they are salvageable and they are misled, but they are just in a situation where they're isolated and desperate, and they're only hearing one message of what one person wants them to hear. So when I see them say such absurd things, I don't want to assume they're stupid, because they might not be, but there's they're just in they're just in an echo chamber, and literally other
I
people don't I think
know, and
realize how much of an echo chamber they're in. Sorry.
I know, but that's how they get us, and that's why I close my DMs, right? Because as much as you want to genuinely believe that they've come to their senses, that they've seen the truth, that they see the scam, that we, in one way or another, have been able to lay it out for them, that literally leads them out of the maze, right? Just to be like, listen, as long as you're aware of what's going on and you still choose to participate, then that's fine because you have informed consent. But if Tate's lying or he's misrepresenting or he's omitting information and then you find that out and you're like, oh, well, that's fine. See, here's what the major problem is, Gadget, is that people on average don't understand what real consent is. And so they think that you can consent after the fact. Well, you can't. Okay, that goes against the very nature of getting consent, right? Like, oh, I grabbed the last chocolate bar out of the fridge or whatever, and the other person, knowing that it's like their favorite chocolate bar, they were saving it, blah blah blah, right? You know them saying, "Oh, it's fine." They're gonna say, "Oh, it's fine," because they don't want to cause a problem over a chocolate bar. But you know, inside they're like super mad, they're seething, and you're just hoping that they're going to be nice enough to just let you get away with disrespecting them because you know in advance that's not mine. And instead of going to get my own, I'm going to take yours, and I'm going to be like, "Oh, you're nice enough to be okay with this, right?" That's where a lot of people go wrong.
Yeah, and one thing I think is important to point out as well when I say what I was saying just before is that there's also a chunk of Tate's audience that I don't see as salvageable, the ones that are real nasty. They see what he does to women, they understand what he does to women, and they think it's cool, and they want to do that too, if it means they can make money. The ones that are salvageable are in denial that Tate's done bad things, which is a very different thing. Um, and also, a lot of them just aren't ready. I have, and crayons, and a bunch of us have had people be like, "Hey, sorry, I love your work, you're doing great, but I was a dick to you guys before," and it's like there was no convincing them at that time. Um, but yeah, and as far as the consent thing, geez, it's a worry. It's a worry. Like how much confusion there is over that. Like it's eye opening. Like just kind of
Yeah, and
seeing.
then the people who like minimize what rape actually is, or what I would consider a penetrative sexual assault versus like an outside, a boob grab or a bum spank or whatever. It is a different thing to be invaded, and you can't undo something like that. It's like attempted murder. You can't undo attempted murder. And so when guys who are like, "Oh, what's the big deal?" Like it's just sex, and it's like, right, fella. But see, here's the thing. Let's say it was a guy bigger than you, and he wanted to have sex with you, and you did not want him to have sex with you, and you couldn't stop him if he wanted to. Now, do you understand consent? Right? It's just somebody doing something to you that you absolutely don't want. And it has no bearing on the attractiveness of either the rapist or the victim, right? One thing I've been kind of tracking as a, how I like my little keywords is nobody wants to rape you. If you put that phrase in quotes in the search bar, you'll find that a lot of people are using that as a kind of an insult.
I've
Think
seen
about
that.
that.
I'm blocking them on site, but where does that come from? That's really started becoming prominent. I'm not sure if one particular influencer or person on here said that, and all the edgy kids thought it's funny. Because at the moment, there's also the Fuentes, the "your body, my choice" thing. So I don't know if it's something like that where someone said it and people got offended. I don't know, but I'm seeing that a lot. And
It's been
again,
around for a while, but it's really ramped up since
hey,
the Your
yeah,
Body, My Choice thing.
okay, that makes sense. What I see a lot with, for example, the likes of Fuentes, right? His delivery is very like happy-go-lucky, jovial type thing, which means his fans can write it off as, oh, he's joking. You just don't get sarcasm. And it's like, listen to what he says and for example, you could say "your body, my choice" was a joke, but then he goes into long diatribes that suggest that he believes that. So that doesn't fly. So it's like he can say something crazy about Jews with a smile on his face, and they can say it's a joke. I'm like, okay, well, he spent like 5 years on the internet, in the fringes of the internet, talking about Jewish, like, Nazi propaganda and praising Hitler. So just because he said this thing with a smile on his face that time, and this, I'm just using Fuentes as an example because it's obviously relevant right now, but yeah, it's weird. It's like just joking about that stuff. It's weird. Like, when did this become a thing?
Well, that's the thing too. It's often preceded by like calm down or relax, right? Like
Gaslighting.
relax. Nobody wants to rape you. Like I how do you respond to something like that? Do you say thank you with a question mark?
Yeah.
Right? Nope.
Oh, that's good. It's good to know. Uh,
I'm marked safe from rape. I'm gonna make that meme. Marked safe from nobody wanting to rape me.
I
You know what
think
I mean?
I think like a lot of this comes from and Tate is like a massive part of this, mate. Potentially the biggest part of this. The like, I would say, conspiracy that so many men are getting falsely accused of rape and sexual assault, and all the rich people are having it happen to them. And it's like, I have a lot of friends, a lot of guy friends. I don't know one that it's happened to. And these people, like, for example, in Tate's case, because he's, in my opinion, a serial rapist, it's beneficial for him to think that this is happening. So he's putting this out. These kids are believing it. So they're like convinced that women that get a bit annoyed with them want to accuse them of rape and shit. And this is just starting to just really water down to the point where you mentioned about them not understanding about consent. Their ideas of human trafficking is a good example of that. where they don't believe like coercive human trafficking is a thing. And that I feel like flows on to then what
That's
they
because
think about
they think coercion
exactly.
is a pickup technique when it's actually a crime.
Exactly. And that again, that like you say, that flows on to what they think about dating and things. But yeah, like you say, that coercion isn't a thing. That without physically restraining someone, it can't be against their consent. And that's just mental. That's insane. Like I don't remember this being a commonly thought thing when I was growing up and a teenager. And geez, it wasn't that freaking long ago.
Yeah, I think I held one or two what is consent type spaces last year. They got some pretty good response, right? And I had a couple of guys come in to like ask questions and like, scenario based challenges and stuff. And I'm like, bro, it's just this. If you don't understand, let me put it this way. Imagine the most unattractive woman that you can think of who's not related to you. Okay. And she wants to have sex with you. And you say no politely. And she's like, oh, come on. You know you want it. And meanwhile, you're disgusted, right? For whatever reason that she's unattractive to you, you're repulsed. And she won't stop. And it's not like that she would technically be successful, maybe forcing you physically or whatever, but she can certainly like touch you in places you don't want her to touch. And she's won't stop bothering you. Like that's just part of it, right? It's I have said no and you have not accepted no. This is not I need you to romance me. This is me actually saying I'm not you seem like a fine person, but I am just not interested in what you have to offer.
And this, I mean, where it most seriously reveals itself is, yeah, in these kind of situations of not understanding consent. But that's where I want to get across to these young guys as well. And this can have a flow on effect of them understanding these things more. Is the messages of, oh my God, even if you look at dating advice and advice on women, for example, that we see from like Tate, Myron, and all these people, it's, oh my God, it's so whiny and desperate. And like the idea that everything's so hard for men and girls have it so much easier, like these freaking men nearly in their 40s saying this stuff. And what I've been seeing a lot of, and it's actually really funny. Well, we're on a not funny subject, but, and I've seen Myron say this so many times, and the guy from the Whatever podcast, Brian, what's his face, say this, where they say, oh, all these girls these days, right? They're just trying to get dinners out of everyone by going on dates, and I'm like, you idiot! You just went on a date and they didn't like you. That's how dating works. Like, so they think that because they went on a date with a woman and they bought them dinner and then they didn't see her again. Oh man, all these whores, they're just trying to get dinner out of us. They're all gold diggers, man. I'm like, boys, look inwards. You gave a shit date and you were not a good experience for her and she didn't want to see you again. If you want to get better at women and get a high quality female, maybe look at yourself. They can't do that. And what these guys teach these young, and again, a lot of them even under 18 lads, is that it's never your fault. It's the women. It's all these whores, man. If you're taking women out for dinner and they're not seeing you again, that's a you problem. That's you. It's not happening to all of us. So
Well, I
fix your
mean,
own
what do they
shit.
want? What Okay, so first of all, women in their dating um pool or bracket or whatever are watching them behave this way on their streams and how they tweet and everything, and it's kind of repellent to a woman. If you know you're going to be treated like crap,
Of
right?
course.
That's one. That's part one. And then part two is like, okay, so do you want a woman who goes out to dinner with you one time and then goes home with you immediately? You're going to think, oh, this woman puts out for Applebee's. If she doesn't, but she doesn't want to see you again, oh, she just used me for food. And so a lot of women, especially young women, are just like, what's the point?
Well, then, and it gets to the point that these lads will go on dates with these girls or these women, and the woman just won't be interested in them and won't want to see them again. And then they'll start sending like strings of texts, like abusing them. Oh, you're just fucking a gold digger. And I'm like, the right advice to this lad is like, okay, find a girl that you click with more that might want to see you again. Who cares? Handle rejection. Who cares? Like, if you are confident in yourself, you won't care if one woman doesn't want to see you again. That,
Imagine going
like,
out to dinner with Myron and have him saying,
oh my God.
female vaginas are disgusting. Check, please.
Oh
Like,
my God.
like if you could come up with another kind of vagina, Myron, other than a female vagina, let me know.
Well, there's a certain type he likes, and it's not a female vagina. Uh,
Apparently, Myron
um,
Gaines is a homosexual. I mean, I've heard that. I've heard that around town.
I mean, I've seen pictures to kind of back it up. I don't go too hard on those lines of arguing just because their words are so easy to make fools out of. But um, these guys are teaching like young men and young boys, okay, be more desperate, be more desperate and insecure and lash out, and then you're going to get more women. Like you're stupid, but then with a certain, if you teach these things to the type of lad or young person who's got it in them to do the kind of acts we're talking about earlier, that's what then empowers them to do that. And again, in a lot of my videos, I try to add, if I spend like 20 minutes clowning on my own, I try to add a message at the end. All you young lads, if you've watched this far, you don't need a clown like this for so. But one, it helps in a less serious and important way, but still, as far as helping young lads know how to not be insecure, uptight idiots dating. But then the flow on effect is what we're seeing with the more dark side. When
Well, even with somebody as quote unquote harmless as John Anthony Lifestyle, it's still a numbers game. It's still very transactional, right? Like a lot of these pickup artists are like, look at how well I craft my group DM, which is the DM that they send out to like 20 girls at the same time. It's like fishing, right? You've got 20 rods in the
yeah,
water, so to speak. And this is my carefully constructed script that gets like 80% return, and I'm just like, yeah, I've seen those.
and you
I've
know what they
seen
do
those
then?
in my
Then they
inbox,
complain
and I
about
ignore them because I know exactly where
yeah.
they are.
Not only that, then they complain that oh man, the quality of women these days is so shit. I'm like, well, your dating methods are shit. Like try an approach where you can meet a quality person and have a quality connection and interaction with them. Again, they can't do that, especially in more so with Myron and all these guys than John Anthony, although to an extent maybe, but I don't know. I'm not as familiar with him, but again, it's just all comes down to blame for everything's on the woman. Um,
Well, I just when I say someone like that's harmless, like John Anthony Lifestyle, it means he's not dating to exploit the women for sex trafficking.
yeah, yeah, sure.
He's just trying to pump up his numbers in terms of like his success rate for quote unquote dating women.
And that's the big contradiction with a lot of these guys is they preach about accountability. You need to be accountable, you need to be a man, but that doesn't count, that doesn't apply when it comes to dating or to the romantic life. It's like, or not that though. You're not accountable for anything bad that happens, or any if you can't get laid or you can't get a girlfriend. That is because all women are whores, man. Like it's and that's my big issue with because when I've made a few videos about or one video sorry but a lot of posts about the Phil Fuentes situation and with that woman going to his house and whatnot, and a few people that maybe the young lads that follow me or subscribe to me have been a bit unhappy with it, and what they've said, a few of them is, "Oh, you're condoning going to someone's house." I'm like, find the post or find the clip of me saying that. It's never happened. But the point is that what I do want to promote is men being accountable, like real accountable. So Fuentes should be accountable. Like when we see Fuentes bitching out and pepper spraying a small middle aged lady and pushing her downstairs like a bitch, are we going to focus on that she shouldn't have knocked on his door? Is that being accountable? No. So
Well,
should
it
I
is
not laugh
post
at him? Should
election,
I not
right?
laugh at him for being a pussy because she shouldn't have knocked on his door? No.
Well, dude, it's
Accountability.
not like there was like a crowd around his door, right? It wasn't like there was like some kind of protest on the sidewalk or nothing, and he was expecting some kind of confrontation, right? Like, we don't know if people had already like sent pizzas to his house or, you know what I mean, like swatting, or we don't know. But basically, it was just what I read. It was kind of described as like the street was pretty like normal, empty. There was like one other lady there in a car driving by, and so it wasn't like he was all amped up inside from this crowd with pitchforks and torches outside or anything. And she did. I watched that video 2 or 3 times. She didn't even touch his house yet. She was reaching her hand out for the doorbell when he flings the door open. I think she gets one word out, hi, and then he shoves pepper spray in her face and pushes her. Now, that is legally a disproportionate response to someone attempting to ring your bell.
You can't do that.
Right? I don't know where laws are elsewhere, but in a civilized society, I can't think of a time when I wasn't expecting visitors, right? But I had a stalker. So anybody coming to the door could be a threat, right? When there's at least one perceived threat out there somewhere. And I just, even though I can see through the door, decide anybody who knocks on it might be my stalker, and I'm just going to pepper spray everybody when I open the door. Like, I would be charged and charged and charged. It's assault.
Well, I looked into because the kind of laws for they call it the castle doctrine, where you can in certain circumstances protect your house with deadly force. And deadly force, people are like, oh, it's not deadly force. Deadly force can be something that can cause someone to die, like pushing them down the stairs. And I looked into the one in Illinois where he is, and there's more standards than some other states even. So, for example, he would have
Well,
to,
Florida has stand your ground, right? Which is pretty much
yeah,
like I know people in Florida who are strapped that will defend right to the edge of their grass. Okay. Other people a little more flexible, but I'm thinking Illinois doesn't have that same kind of stand your ground. And the fact that there was no signs posted about no visitors, no solicitors, or anything like that, you don't know if the house might be a multi-unit dwelling where there's apartments inside because you can't tell that from the outside when people renovate it to rent out. Um, you know what I mean? So go ahead, Gadget.
yeah. So there's no, is there a stand your ground rule? I don't think there is, but there's a castle doctrine law, and in Illinois, so the oh god, I could get the tweet up to get the wording exact, but there's something along the lines of for them to be aggressively what in your house representing threat. She wasn't in his house, so that's ruled out. Or engaging in the act of like murder, sexual assault, There was another one as well. Basically, it's not going to apply. So I do think if she just chooses to press charges, that he'll be in trouble. Yeah, you just can't violently attack someone for ringing your doorbell. Um,
Well,
and
see,
then
now he's got two problems actually, Gadget, because one is the assault with the weapon, which is pepper spray, and the other is he actually put his hands on her to push, and that is physical assault. So he's got a physical assault and assault with a weapon. Like he just could have pepper sprayed her and slammed the door.
he would have to argue that he was justified or whatever to think that his life was in danger. Now, you could say, oh, he was doxxed and blah, blah, blah. People have made the argument to me, right, that, well, she doxed him and he knew that. I'm like, he knew that. So he saw her from like outside the house, saw her face, had seen her Facebook posts, recognized her face from the profile on the Facebook post, put it together, and in that split second realized he was under threat and in danger and pushed her. Like, they're twisting themselves in ridiculous circles to try to justify it, and there's no justification there for the amount of force that he used on someone
Like
that was so
personally,
unthreatening physically.
I would not have knocked on the door.
Sure, of
If
course.
I wasn't going to walk over and see if it's true, just like she did, if I was curious. I'm not blaming her. I'm just saying going up to the house, probably not the best idea if you don't know the person, right? It feels a little like too much, but he definitely does not have the right to do the kind of response that he did, and he's going to be charged for it. That's all there is to it. Right? Like she could have been dropping off a flyer. She could have been like, "Hey, save the whales, sign this petition." Right? He don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'll stress this that I do not advise going to someone's door, any influencer's door, someone who's been doxxed. Like, yeah, I would not advise that. And I think it's good to have a policy of being against doxing even people that you don't like. So I've made this clear. People seem to suggest that I think otherwise, which is not the case. But having said that, again, as someone who feels like I should use my platform to preach men taking accountability, he's he's the pussy that's in the wrong here. What he did far exceeds what she did. A woman who made a post with an address that had been doxed thousands of times, circulated thousands of times, going to his doorbell and ringing the doorbell. To say that's worse than a grown man in his 20s pushing a middle-aged or older small 5'1", I think she said she is, woman downstairs. Like, if you think those things are even equal or that her actions outweigh his greatly, which I've seen a lot of, then yeah, you're just lost. And then I'm seeing a lot of also like, oh, she's lucky he didn't do more. He didn't shoot her. Talking tough, but yeah, clown. Like, the amount of money that Myron makes doing the shit he's doing compared to what he could be making if he just towed the line enough to stay on YouTube, for example. It's hard to say that he's doing it strictly for money, but I don't know. Is it all for attention? It's the old Dave Chappelle sketch with the black white nationalist. What's his name? Clayton Bigsby. This is Myron, like going into the white power
Oh,
spaces. Like,
the blind racist who doesn't know
yes,
Jack. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
Classic sketch.
I always put that picture up too, right? Every
Yeah,
time someone doesn't realize that they're hating the thing that they are.
it's just idiots, man. Like, even Fuentes, he's freaking half Mexican, and he's like full Nazi, like talking about Aryan victories and stuff. Like, you're idiots.
We will talk about Tate because, and I've just been barely trying to keep up with like the dates because there's the asset dates, there's what's the one where they have like house arrest and judicial control measures, right? Whether it's house arrest or restricted to uh, the county above. Then there's their actual trial. And it seems like even when the updates come out now, Gadget, people are like, okay, thanks. Thanks
Yeah,
for letting us know there's another fucking delay.
yeah, yeah. It feels like that for me too. Every time the date rolls around, I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to get myself excited that we're going to have any proper news today. So when the day finally comes, I'm going to be like, oh my God, we got a trial date? Party time. Let's start a space. Um, because yeah, it's just a lot of it's getting very repetitive, which is law. That's legal process. It happens. But
Yeah, because the first half of it is Tate's lawyers filing appeals for everything, and I'm not
yeah,
saying Dicot doesn't either, right? Like they appeal whenever the Tates win, absolutely. But it's half of that, the lawyers, and the other half is the actual Romanian court constantly postponing decisions without reason given. Yeah.
yeah. I do think we're on the home stretch though, as far as official announcement for trial, because if we look at the recent delays and what the rulings have been, it's so the judge was asking, and I found this significant as well that this wasn't a request from Tate's lawyers. This is the judge came up with this and requested this for the way the assets are allocated in the indictment to be more specific as far as what amounts were allocated towards which crimes against which victim and which um uh, which crime specifically. And I think it might have been Run the Crayon sources that said that it was likely that if this does happen and the judge takes it back to DCOT to amend this, that they might just it might just be like a 5 day type process. And I know we've speculated, I'm not sure if we've had anything confirming this, that this latest push to, I guess, a week from the 12th earlier in the week to the 19th may have been the fact that DCOT made the amendments that that the judge wanted and they want to review this. We're not sure, 100% sure, but if this is the case, I see that as actually a positive sign that we might have a result, because for it to be delayed any further, DCOT, not DCOT, Tate's lawyers, I'd imagine, would have to come up with a completely new curveball and reason, and I'm not sure how much of that is how much left is for them able to do that. So I'm starting to feel cautiously optimistic that we're in the home stretch and that we're going to have some real updates and real progress towards learning of a trial date soon. But having said that, cautiously optimistic is the word. I'm refusing to get my hopes up. But having said that, there's only so much of these delays that can happen. So I feel like once this period we're in now is over and we have a trial date and are working towards that, things news wise and interest wise is really going to start picking up again. And I say that from like our followers and audience, and also for us, interest for us as far as presenting this. Again, I'm sick of, I don't want to do another video that I've done 6 months ago debunking the same lie that Andrew told 6 months ago. I want some new stuff.
And what is it about, like, okay, so Will has a record, right? And that Justin Lamborghini guy has a record too, right? Like it's almost like Tate's waiting outside jail to like hire people.
Oh, Justin. I really, really, really want to talk with Justin in a space, and not even like in a angry way. He's just become one of my favorite characters. Now that kept me entertained for a while. That whole saga. Um, Justin, where do I even start? So this Lamborghini giveaway, Justin, he flew, and he's said this so many times. Oh, they called me up, and I flew in from, was it Florida to Florida to Texas, and then I didn't know what they called me in for. Blah blah blah. I was at a coffee shop. Then I came in. It turns out they called me in to win the Lamborghini, and I'm like, Andrew was on stream, on that stream that you appeared on when you met with them to get the Lamborghini, telling kids to join the real world, to get in the running to buy the Lamborghini. And then he just kept saying it. He's like, "Oh, they chose me. They chose me because I'm such a good student." I'm like, "They chose you."
How far in advance do you think that they had to do that to make sure he got a flight and got to that coffee shop to wait until the appropriate time on stream where they could coordinate an Uber to literally pick him up and take him 5 minutes down the road, not even, to this dealership where he's walking in, right? Watching the stream on his phone. And then he sees that the stream on his phone is broadcasting where he is. Oh my God, I want that car. I've seen better
Oh,
acting in 70s pornos.
and just I think the fact that Tates have lasted as long as they have is a clear indictment on how stupid some law enforcement is, because they are the stupidest. Like, Justin's efforts were one thing, but the way that Tate botched this is just so funny. I mean, the car giveaway scam is a classic influencer scam. Someone that you know posing as a random winner of this car, and so many people have done it. Nelk Boys did it. Why did they have him come into the shop? Why? He could have zoomed in. They could have made it so much more believable. They didn't have to spend the money to fly him in. That just made it worse. They're
Yeah, yeah,
so fucking
yeah.
stupid.
Right? Because if they didn't fly him in, right? Like if they just, they scheduled a Zoom call with him for the time that they were quote unquote picking the winner, it would have been way better. And then be like, oh, and then we got you a flight. It leaves tomorrow morning so you can go see the car that you won and take pictures and everything, right? Would have worked out so much better. But instead, they have to self snitch in the way that they do everything, right? And by the way, Gadget, I know that you're paying very close attention. Has Justin driven his car yet?
No. So he said, like, it might have been the day after or something, and I was doing all sorts of posts, having fun with it. And he replied to me saying, "Oh, you're going to get tired of seeing." Because I said, "Oh, Justin, can you please post a picture of you driving the car? Because this looks like a certain scam. So you could clear this up for," knowing that he'd lost his license. For those that don't know, he can't possibly have a license. He's got 3, 4 DUIs. Um, so there was that factor. That's why I said, "Oh, how about you post a picture driving the car, Justin? Please, please reassure us." He responded saying, "Oh, you're going to get tired of seeing how many videos I take driving this Lamborghini. You're going to get sick of me. I'm going to tag you in all
You'll
of them."
see, Gadget. You'll see. You'll
It's
see.
been nearly 3 weeks. Of course, it's not best case scenario, but again, I don't even know if that they could have. Good chance they just wrapped that stupid car up for a day and all the Trump stuff, and it's off on its way again. We might never see that car again. I don't know, but he's still posting about it. He's posted like the same old picture of the day of him in the workshop. He's great. He's the
Hasn't
best.
it been like a month?
It's nearly. It must be coming up on 3 weeks, I think, or probably 3 weeks. I reckon it'll be about 3 weeks. I think it was around the weekend that of the week that it happened. I might need to do some kind of follow up. I want to talk with him, but I know it will never happen. Yeah, I need to. I've used that skeleton meme a few times of waiting for Tate's world tour, waiting for the real world token. So I might need to make one of waiting for Justin to tag me in videos of him driving the Trumpagini. Oh, what a clown! So for some like myself and crayons and certain YouTubers like CoffeeZilla back in the day have been inside the real world and Hustles University. So they'll tell you it's 100% positive place of young men bettering themselves and getting fit and all these things, which there's elements of that. They're encouraging each other to get fit, sure, but it is not a positive place. It is not a positive part of the internet. It's sad. It's really sad. it's a desperate part of the internet. That's what it is. Lots of young kids, many of the minors.
Begging for attention, begging for help.
Yes, yes, 100%. And validation. God, they're just craving some kind of validation, and it's like they're given little kind of inklings of that they're going to get that validation, and then Tate will jump on a stream and say, "You're all losers if you're not rich. You're pathetic. You're dorks."
They might as well be
100%.
talking to themselves in the mirror at that point.
Yeah. And Tate knows what he's doing when he does these things. He knows how young his audience is, and he knows how desperate his audience is. It's by design. He knows that. But he knows that if he talks to them in this way, he'll keep them. And this is where the claims over the years of it being a pyramid scheme come in. A common thing in pyramid schemes is that if you're not successful in making money, you're not applying the systems and working hard enough, even though no one's making money apart from the few people at the top that own the thing. Um, and that's a big part of the messaging from Tate and what these kids get. So they're in there, they're craving this validation. And if they ask a question of like, I'm not making any money, or even something, now this is disturbing, but even something along the lines of, because it's a no fap cult as well, that's part of it. So you'll get kids saying like, oh, I turned on some porn yesterday, and they'll get dressed down from that. That's how deep this control is, and this self-loathing that they create. And if you're not successful, then you're a loser and you're just being a loser, but you have to work harder. And if you quit, you're the biggest loser. If you cancel your membership, if you stop giving Tate money, that makes you a loser. That makes you like not that makes you destined for slavery if you'd stop giving Tate money. But it's
You
sick.
see, I don't know what it is about, like, maybe it's like the empathy factor or whatever, right? Like, so like, so let's say last year or whatever, if someone came on to my post or whatever and they were like at least respectful, right? um I would say stuff like, dude, the power's in you. That's what Tate's not telling you, right? Like, you're paying him $50 a month, but
100%.
you're doing literally all the hard work. Like, if you know you should go to the gym, if you know that you should read a book or like educate yourself, or, you build a strong foundation to have a family, or just if you want to be a fuck bro or whatever, like, but you have to be independent. You got to build a life. Like, you understand that this stuff is inside you already and you don't need Tate.
Well, and
And
that's a point I made as well, is that do we think Nick would have acted and did what he did if it was a man his own age that rang the door? Fuck no. He's a pussy. So these these lads that are delusional that they think they're preaching masculinity, like you should be clowning on him like all week for this. It's the biggest pussy act ever. Because yeah, there's no way that guy is physically. He's not a big guy, which is nothing against him, but it's true. He's not doing that to me if I ring his doorbell. I'm sorry, he's just not. Um, so I don't know. They're very selective with when they want to see things as masculine, and when they want to turn the other way when a man is being an absolute pussy.
oh yeah, getting back to like the doxing stuff. Even when I was doing digs on the first Trump shooter and I was posting publicly available information, I was still redacting quite a bit. I don't want families to get harassed. I don't want their friends and associates to get harassed because they've probably already been contacted by law enforcement and journalists. They don't need some random dickhead from Twitter showing up and ringing the bell, right, Gadget?
Yeah,
Because apparently you get pepper sprayed if you do that shit in America. But yeah, I mean, what good would it do? The only thing I was posting about it was just to kind of show the difference, or sorry, the distance between the home addresses that were publicly available and the and where the shooting took place, right? Just to show like who lived where and how close they lived to each other and why theory can work, like kind of thing. But I blocked out everything. Doesn't mean people can't go look it up for themselves, right? But I'm not going to be the one accused of doxing. I posted the map, right? Because like I said, I don't want to be doxed. I've tried to be really careful about posting certain information because I am anti-dox. In general, like if you have information about criminal activity, you should be going to the police, not Twitter, right? If you have a personal problem with somebody, you just usually look after it in the DM. And the only time to really put stuff out in public or a thread is if it's in the public interest, not because they don't like me, so I'm going to do something mean to them. That's juvenile.
Yeah, and that's with doxing. It's definitely I think something that has to be the standard that is accepted, that you don't dox even someone who is one you don't like, but also someone that's just um yeah, just a terrible person. But because they could have family with them that's innocent in the matter, and it's yeah. So if I need to repeat it, if anyone's listening, do I approve of doxing? No. Does me clowning on Nick Fuentes mean I approve of doxing? No. If I need to make that clear again.
But we do believe in karma.
Sure, and we can laugh
Karma.
when bad things happen to bad people. That's okay.
That's right.
So I'm gonna wrap it up in a few minutes if I don't see a request. Gadget, do you have some final words?
Not really. Oh, it's getting a bit late here, and I'm crashing pretty hard. So thank you for the space. It was nice and good to kind of vent about all the craziness that's been going on the last few weeks as well. So that's about it from me.
All right then. Good night to Gadget. Thanks you all for stopping by. Thanks to the listeners on the replay. Just before we go, don't forget to check out Gadget's page. He's listed as one of the speakers, so that you can find his profile and do a keyword search for fundraiser or donation, to be able to donate to the fundraiser. If you have already, thank you very much. If you haven't yet, shares are always great. Get the word out, because if you don't have money, somebody does. Okay. So thank you very much, everybody. Hope you got a little laugh out of it and some information, and we'll see you next time.